What if I told you that you don't have to put up with poor quality, boring photography from drones? You might think to yourself, using auto mode is a crutch that makes things look okay and easy to use. But I'm here to tell you there is a better way. Allow me to demonstrate. Now, sure, you can take a poor quality photo with a drone that costs 10 times as much as the Mini 5 Pro. And a 1-inch sensor in a small drone like this is incredible, but it still pales in comparison to something like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. So we've still got to get a little bit clever and a little bit creative, but there's nothing stopping you creating incredible images like this. And this is how we're going to do it. So first of all, I want you to go to the 3 dots in the top right hand corner and go to camera. I want you to turn on your grid lines and your overexposure warnings. We don't need to do anything else in here other than what we've already done in the previous videos. Now, forgive me if some of this is a little bit stuff that you already know, a bit rudimentary, but when it comes to photography, the most important thing is your rule of thirds. And a lot of people will do what I've done here and will stick the subject bang in the middle. Don't do that. So let's line up the shot first of all before we do anything else. So we want that rule of thirds. So ideally we want the subject to be, if we just tilt the gimbal down slightly, we can see, if we go back a little bit, sorry, come forward a little bit even, and it's probably a good shout for now. We're gonna do more things, but just for now, for the initial framing. Now, when you first get your drone, it's going to be set to auto mode and it's going to be set to JPEG. Now, auto mode and JPEG, well, let's have a look at what it does. We spoke in the tutorial the other day about shooting in D-Log because that gives you more, what's the word I'm looking for? More freedom to expose, more freedom to adjust the colours, etc. And we're going to do exactly the same now, but with photographs. And the difference there is we're not going to shoot in D-Log, we're going to shoot in RAW. Now, you can just shoot in RAW or you can shoot in RAW and JPEG. I'd always advise you to shoot both. The reason for that is if you've got something that looks relatively decent and you can just make a few minor changes and post it instantly because you need to do it for whatever reason, then you're going to need the JPEG. If you want the best quality image that you can adjust and make that look the best that you can possibly do, you're going to want RAW. So why not have both? The second thing we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're going to see where it says auto. We're going to press that and it's going to change to Pro. That gives us loads of options down here, and by pressing them we can see what they are. Now, a few sort of rudimentary rules that we try not to break wherever possible, but remember, rules are always there to be broke, officer. First of all, keep your ISO or ISO to 100. Sometimes if you're shooting in low light, you will need to bump it up a little bit. If you can adjust something else to keep that ISO at 100, adjust that other thing. And on this particular drone, the only thing that we've got to adjust is our shutter speed. If you're flying a Mavic 4 Pro or a Mavic 3 Pro or an Inspire, you'll be able to adjust your aperture as well. Not only will that adjust how bright and dark your scene is, but what that also does is adjust how much of the background is in and out of focus. But we're not going to worry about that too much today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lower our shutter speed, and every time we lower it, we double the amount of light that's available to the camera. And we are getting to the point now where if we look at the exposure meter, the EV meter at the bottom, it tells us 0.0, or it's just gone up to plus 0.3, and again it dropped back down to 0.0. So what that's telling us is that this scene is perfectly lit. I disagree a little bit, because if you look at the zebras, you can see that some of that sky is blown out. So my advice would be just to increase it until it's around about minus 0.3. the majority of the sky now, the zebras have gone. Not all of it, but we're going to fix that. That's not a problem. We've roughly got the image to where we need it to be before we actually start to shoot. But before we take that photo, we're going to do one more thing. And we're going to press this button here. And we're going to change it from single photo to AEB, auto exposure bracketing. I'm going to select 5, or whichever drone you've got. If you've got a different drone, some will do 7, some will do 3. Select the maximum number. Now, what is auto exposure bracketing? Well, essentially, the system will take one perfectly exposed photo based upon what you've told it is perfectly exposed. And then in this instance, it's going to take 2 underexposed, one by 0.3, one by 0.7, or sorry, one by 0.7 and one by 0.1. And then it's going to go up 2 on the meter the other way. So it's going to take the one that's 0.0 and then 0.3 in the plus range. What we then do with them is we'll put them in the PC in Lightroom. And I know some of you guys are like, no, but we're going to put them in the PC in Lightroom and we're going to edit them. But it's not editing like Photoshop editing. All we're going to do, it's really simple, is we're going to pop them in the PC, we're going to put them all together, we're going to press one button and that's it. And we will have that at the end of this video, so please do stay tuned. But now, for now, we're going to take the picture and it takes 5 images for us. And here on the screen now is what that image looks like after we've processed it in Lightroom. I think you'll all agree it's a bit different, isn't it? Now, and like I say, all we're doing here now is we're just understanding photography better. We're not reinventing the wheel, pardon the pun with what's on the screen. I'm not trying to teach you guys a skill that is crazy and out there. We're just understanding the basic of photography. And photography ultimately is capturing a scene with light. That's literally all it is. And it's really easy to get overawed with these settings and overawed with, oh, well, I've got to do this and I've got to do that and forget that you're just there to take a photo. And you'd be doing exactly the same thing on the ground with a camera as you're doing in the air. I made a post on my community feed a couple of weeks ago saying DJI drones are not drones, they're just cameras in the air on a tripod. And I stand by that because that's exactly what they are. They're phenomenal pieces of equipment, don't get me wrong. But it is, we've just got a camera that's in the air. Now, if we look at our EV meter, the sun's come out a little bit more and we've gone from 0.3 to 0.0 now. And we can see and we can feel that the sun is getting a little bit brighter. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get a little bit more creative with our shots. Now, obviously I can see around me there's a few little things here, but ultimately I think the best thing to do at this moment in time is to stay on the wheel of death. So that's what we're going to do, but we're going to make it look a little bit better. I can just about see that through the trees from where I am. By just about, officer, I mean I can see it perfectly well. Now look at the difference taking the shot from this angle makes. We are +7 on the EV meter, so we're going to increase our shutter speed a couple of times and we're at -3 now. And again, we're just going to take a picture. We're going to combine them all together shortly. Okay, so that's what that picture looks like. In fact, I'm not going to show you that at this moment in time because we're going to edit these a little bit later together. We can probably, if we go forward a little bit, we can make it look a little bit more dramatic. Again, using our rule of thirds, if we keep the top left of the wheel of death around that crosshair and then take the photo there. Morning, you all right?
Yes, thanks. See you.
Yes, thank you very much. If we block out that sun with the chimney first of all. There we go. Drop the camera down so we can see the wheel of death. And we've got the chimney there on the rule of thirds as well, but then hit zoom in. Now we're massively underexposed in -2.7, so we're just gonna... Now, this is another problem that a lot of you guys, not necessarily you guys, but a lot of new people to photography and drones don't understand. Never shoot with the sun directly into the camera, and this is the reason why it will ruin your photos. Again, sometimes if you need to put an ND filter on, you can sort of get away with that, but when it comes to photography, the first thing that we do when we take off, if we're just going to take photos, is we remove that ND filter. Because an ND filter for photography isn't required. So the best thing you can do is to not shoot directly into the sun. Okay, I like that, that's a nice shot, but we're overexposed now, so we're just going to adjust this until we go to minus 0.3. Now, the sun there is a little bit bright, so we're okay to go down a little bit further. We go down to minus 1. Now that looks really, really dark, doesn't it? But let's take the photo and we're going to edit it in Lightroom. Again, let me change the phrase of that. We're not going to edit it in Lightroom, we're going to process it in Lightroom. There's a big difference between editing and processing photos. People do get a little bit confused about that and a little bit concerned, well, I can't edit, I don't want to edit. We're just going to process it. We're not going to change what the image is. We're just going to put all 5 photos together. We're going to create something a bit special. So, first things first. If we place this there, what are we looking at for the rest of the scene? Well, it's a little bit boring, isn't it? So why don't we try and place it here and see if we can get the Wheel of Death in. If we just come back over here. Before we land, we are about to land and move over to the PC, but before we do, I just want to have a quick look. So as you can see now, each one of these, if you click on it, has got 5 photos. So you've got normal exposed, under, over, further under and further over. None of them look particularly brilliant on their own, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to put them all together into one. That can also increase your pixels as well. Depending on how you do it, you can also increase the size of your pixels whilst doing this. But for now, I'm going to move over to the studio and the PC, and we're going to start importing these. So I'll see you in a second. What we need to do first of all is plug our drone into our PC, and when we do, we can go to my PC and we can find where our drone is amongst all our other hard drives. As you can see, I've got 1 or 2 other hard drives on here. Probably could do with a new one actually. We were getting critically low on space, but this is the one we're looking for, SD card. If we double click on this, DCIM is the one that you want, and then DJI is the one that will contain your normal photos and normal videos. The easiest thing to do is we're only going to look today at editing the raw files. So we're going to put them in type order, and you can see here we've got JPEG, and I did mention in the video, JPEG is not something that we're going to be able. There we go. I wonder where they've gone for a second. JPEG is not something that we're going to be able to edit in the way that we want to. What we want is the DNG files, the digital negative files. So if we just highlight all of those, and you can either keep them on your drone as well as a backup, or you can cut and just put them onto your hard drive. So I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to go into the folder that I've assigned on the hard drive, and I'm just going to click paste. That's going to then copy them over to the hard drive. And this makes it easier for editing. It also makes it easier to remember where you've got the stuff as well, because the last thing that you want is to think, well, is it on the drone? Or you go out and you've got no space on the drone and you're like, oh, I'll just format it. So it's always best to take them off. If you want to leave them on the drone as well, so you've got a backup, by all means do that. But I'd always advise you editing from the PC. One, it makes it quicker because you don't have that USB cable in between. It's direct from the hard drive. But 2, like I say, it just makes it a little bit neater. So let's speed this up a second. So that's now copied all of those files over. We've got some video on there as well, and we're going to deal with that later, but this is a photography tutorial. So just click off them, and if you've got Lightroom installed, and this tutorial is going to be based around Lightroom, but most of them are very similar, you're going to need to import your photos into there. Now, if you've got Lightroom, the easiest way of doing that is just double click on one of them, Lightroom will then automatically open up. And I'd recommend using Lightroom Classic as well. If you've got the subscription to Lightroom CC and stuff, use Lightroom Classic, it's a lot better. Give that 1 second and that will then populate everything. And it's going to ask you which ones would you like to import. If you come down here and click check all, it's going to bring every single one of the photos in that we've just taken. And then over here we press import. And this is the image that we took as a single image without any AEB. And it doesn't look too bad, does it? We can move this around a little bit, but if we look over here, we've got grainy details in the shadows here. And it's okay. It's okay. I mean, a lot of people would be happy with that, but I'm going to teach you better. So go to the next one and then count 5 because we've taken an AEB of 5 photos. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then right click and you're going to go to Photo Merge HDR. And depending on how much movement is in your scene, you're going to need to decide how much to deghost. There's hardly any movement in this scene, so I'm going to set it to low. The deghosting is basically where you've taken a photo and it's a few millimeters or a few centimeters to the left on one and a few centimeters to the right on the other, and it creates this ghosting effect. You'll get that if you've got movement with cars and stuff, so you're going to have to think about how you're going to do this. If you've got long exposure photography, then this is perfect for it. But we're just going to give it a second to build our low deghost profile. And that's the initial image that it's going to give us. And we're going to hit merge. Then we're going to wait a second, because it does, even with a powerful PC, take a slight second. And if we look down here, I'm just going to deselect this, because if we look down here, we'll be able to see when it builds it, because you'll have 3 icons at the bottom of the next image along that it's going to populate in there. And this is well worth doing. It does add a couple of minutes. There we go. It does add a couple of minutes to your workflow. But like I say, if you want the best possible results, this is the way to do it. So that's the initial image that we've got. And now what we're going to do is we're going to process it. So this is our HDR image, and we can see because it's renamed it up here, hdr.dng. Looking at the histogram, the system will move all the sliders around. So it merges all of the photos. So again, if we look in the shadows now, we've got more details in the shadows. We've got less grain and less noise in those shadows. And we've got better highlights, and it's not blown out as much, but it can still be a little bit better. Allow me to show you. So technically speaking, you need to make sure that the top of the left and the right touch each side. But if we just lower that down ever so slightly, and we can get hold of the whites now, we can just pull the whites up a little bit. Okay. Now, one of my secret, it's not really a secret, but one of the things I do in a lot of my images is dehaze them. So we just use a little bit of dehazing, and then you can either lower your clarity or increase your clarity slightly. And then obviously you've got your texture as well. You can either lower your texture depending on what you're looking for, but generally looking around about that. Now, we've got sharpening. I will always sharpen a drone image. So I'm holding down Alt, and I'm moving the slider around, and it shows me the overlay of where it's going to sharpen. And I'm not going to increase the sharpening radius or anything like that. I'm just going to leave that how it is. The other thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to, say, my blues, and I'm going to change my Luma shift. I'm just going to darken that up a little bit. And then I'm going to go to my greens, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. And then I'm going to go to the reds on here. I'm going to do that. That just makes the image pop a little bit. If we press Y now, there's your original HDR, sorry, and there is the process version. Don't know what the timer is on this, but it's probably taken us about 60 seconds to do at most from start to finish. And that is how you process that HDR image to look like that. And I think, or at least I hope you all agree, once you're finished, by the way, you need to export. If you've ever exported before, just export with previous. If you haven't, click on export and set up wherever you want to save it to. What you can then do, or in fact, let's do the next image. Do we like this image more, or do we like this image more? That is pretty, yeah, let's go with this one. So again, we count 5 in, we right click, and we photo merge HDR. Keep it to minimum. Just give it a second. It's going to auto align, auto settings. This will do 99% of the work for you. It's just then a case of deciding what style you want. So I've showed you my style. That's not necessarily the right style. That's just how I personally edit mine. How you decide to edit yours is entirely up to you guys. I'm going to hit merge and we're just going to wait a second. And I'm going to show you another trick. Now, we don't have a lot of noise in this image. If we look under here, and this is the difference that you're going to see when the image is ready, you'll see that this won't be as dark. And we should have less blown out clouds as well. So if we look on this now, we can see, look, we've got way more details in those shadows. Okay, I think that image is a little bit too bright. It's touching the right a little bit too much. So we're going to bring it back. And we're just going to add a little bit of white just to push without too much. Then I'm going to dehaze it. Again, not too much. Less is more. But with this one, we're going to add some clarity and some texture because we're also going to add a decent amount of sharpening to make it look gritty. Now that looks okay, doesn't it? It would pass the requirements for most people, but we're going to just change these colors a little bit. We're going to just remove a little bit of saturation and then darken them up a little bit. There's just too much saturation in that sky because we want to make it nice. You can, with this, you can obviously change the color of it as well, but we want to make it a little bit moody, and I quite like that. We'll go to the reds there, and again, we're just going to darken them up. You can change, again, the saturation while still having them dark, or the luma, if you wish. Now, look at the original. The original's nice, but we can see straight away here, look, the level of detail that we managed to pull out with just a few sliders. And even around the wheel here, look, we've pulled out so much more detail. This looks a little bit soft, whereas this obviously doesn't. And that is how I would recommend that you would do that. You've also, if you look on the chimney as well, you can see the difference in how much detail you've pulled out from that HDR. And that's what the bonus of doing this in HDR mode gives us, is it gives us more power to be able to edit it, more power to be able to process it, more power to be able to change it and bring those details out. I was told when I started photography about, oh God knows, many moons ago, I was told, so if you go to photo and enhance, this is only a Lightroom thing, but I was told many years ago, taking a photo is just 50% of the task. What you also need to do is process that image or edit it, depending on what your flavor is. Now, just looking at this, I'm just going to cancel this because I'm looking at this blue sky here, and this blue sky here doesn't really match the rest of the scene. So this is a different blue than what we've already edited, you see. So if we darken that up, it will affect the other a little bit. Well, that looks better, doesn't it? So again, compare that to the original, and I'd hope you'd agree that it looks better. You can also do things like you can scroll in as far as you want. You can grab yourself a brush. Eventually, we can say brush, and what we can do is we just brush around here. Then you can decide what you want to do. So you may want to darken that area up. You may want to, and I'm showing you to the extreme degree, but you may want to raise the shadows on that. You may want to lower the highlights on it and raise the shadows on it. Looks very similar to how it was before, doesn't it? You can up the exposure, or you can lower the exposure. And again, we're doing it to the extreme, so just bear that in mind. But you can also remove all saturation. So it becomes like a colour pop photo. And you've got loads and loads of things to do, but I'm just showing you the sort of basics at this moment in time. And what I'm going to do now is, if you've done a mask and you don't like it, you can just delete them all. That's simple as that. Let's go to this image. So that's what it's provided us. And it's a really good starting point. We've got the rule of thirds with the wheel of death and with the chimney. We've got something in the foreground here. And obviously you've got your background as well. It's a really nice images. I really do like this. But it's not ready for prime time just yet. So you're going to hold your Alt key. And we're going to start with dehazing, because I think if we go to about there, and if we just raise that and raise that. So what you're looking for ideally is for an arrow here and here. As long as you've got information in the middle, it doesn't really matter. Ideally, you'd avoid it clipping at the top, but we can deal with most of that when it comes to photos. When it comes to videos, it does become a little bit more of a problem. Okay. A little bit of clarity. But we've got too much, I think, saturation and vibrance here, which is what the system's applied. It said, okay, this is what we need this image to look like. And that's fine. We just disagree with it. So we're going to darken that up a little bit, and then we're just going to remove a little bit of that saturation. And then with the trees down here, again, we're just going to do the same so that they're not burning our eyes. You can also do it with the yellows over here as well, because your eyes are naturally going to be drawn over there. And of course, we want to do it with the reds over here. Okay, let's have a look. So we have got a little bit of what's called chromatic aberration. Now we can do this one of a few ways. We just want to remove these purple hues. So if we just defringe a little bit, it just looks a little bit better, doesn't it? I think we've not done a bad job. Bearing in mind, this is not even your in focus subject either. The chimney should be the in focus subject. Or maybe it's this actually. But we can see it's not perfect. We've still got a little bit of chromatic aberration around there. But again, I think most people would call that a pretty good job. I've got to be honest. So that blue is far, far too blue. It's almost unnatural, isn't it? And again, similar sort of with the yellows and the greens in the background. They're just a little bit too much in your face. And then I think what I'm going to do is, if you add loads of clarity and loads of texture and loads of dehaze, you can really make it look nice and aged. It's not the look we're going to go for though, so on this one we're just going to add a little bit. I think I'm just going to reduce that vibrance a little bit. I'm just not massively happy with that sky. And we could work on it for a little bit longer, but we'd be here all day. And the idea of this is it's a quick tutorial. So let's make it quick. Now for this, because of the way that the scene is set up, we're going to try and make the colours pop a little bit more. And each one's going to be a little bit different. And again, you can overdo this. And I am only doing it really, really quickly to try and show you guys just how quick you can turn a scene around. And I think overall, just going to have to add a fair bit of clarity just to pull that back. But if we look at the original, this looks vibrant, it looks alive. The original, despite being a 5-image stack, just looks a little bit lifeless, doesn't it? Anyway, that is the tutorial done. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please do leave them in the comments down below. Please like, subscribe and share this video so that we can get out there to as many people as possible. I want you all to enjoy drones, and I'm going to keep sharing the knowledge that I've got. Any questions whatsoever, leave them down below. I always reply. Peace out.